Start with a prayer.
All right.
Heavenly Father, we come together before you to honor your Sabbath, to keep your promise, to keep the promise to each other of being of one mind with you. Open our hearts and our minds, Lord, to the subject of sexuality, of helping us to understand what it is to be human in this age, in the last and the final movement of this earth's history. Help us, Lord, to clear out any old preconceived notions, any old traditions that we've held on to, so that we can grow together through love and as neighbors one to another. I ask all this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to do to kind of not set the stage, but kind of, was this is the second part of the video, the last presentation that I did where Parminder was talking about sexuality towards the end, but the very first part was what I focused on in the last presentation. So this one, wanting to kind of clean up those loose ends a little bit of how we perceive, how we understand sexuality. There's a really great video that I shared on the Bible thread about this father in Arkansas who was speaking to the legislature in protest of the, I guess it was the ban that they placed on allowing non-binary children to seek the medical help that they desired, to have hormone treatments, I guess there's several different things that they could have done, puberty blocking or hormone enhancing treatments, to allow them to be in a body if they were born genetically outwardly looking female, but yet they felt as though they were male. These hormone treatments that doctors had been doing for decades that I'm aware of, that have research behind it, that have FDA approval, otherwise they wouldn't have been allowed to do it. It would have been outlawed in the United States. This father was advocating for these rights that these children are now having taken away. The Arkansas legislature that I'm aware of was one of the first to put the ban on. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just in Arkansas that I was acutely aware since I live here. But I just thought the father did an amazing job of supporting his child and allowing others that have similar issues, or not issues, but similar desires of his child to actually be in this world as they truly feel themselves to be. And I use the term feel kind of loosely because it's more than just a feeling. It's a identification. It's the knowingness about yourself that you don't fit in to this binary male, female, gender role specific world. Say that again, Kathy.
Just on what you were saying there, I watched a video of a woman whose daughter transitioned to a boy, and it was a beautiful story. And she said to her daughter, she says, "I will love you no matter, you know, if you want to be a boy, it's okay with me. I love you. And she goes, it's not a matter of wanting to be a boy. It's who I am. I am a boy. And so then she did go through the process of like mourning a daughter, but she fell in love with her son and saw him. Truly, she was a him, and he is just this amazing person. And she's now rejoicing and having a son. So it was just picking up on what you were saying about they do have another identity that is valid, and it's not just, oh, I think I'd rather be this. No,
Right.
they are having to battle and break out to the truth of who they really are, regardless of the outward shell.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to try to share screen so we can all watch that video. Web URL. Fingers crossed.
Looks like it's gonna work, maybe.
Go away.
No thanks.
I think so. Okay. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, there we go. Hit that arrow. There we go.
Oh, maybe it's gonna load all the way. Okay. Just want the video. Why is it not playing?
Are you hitting that arrow in the middle?
I am.
Oh, how weird.
Okay. Can anybody Pam, can you grab the link at the top and see if you're able? Maybe it's just my phone that it doesn't like.
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to viewing, because I'm in your screen and I can't do anything.
Oh, okay.
So I'd have to send it to me.
Okay, I'm trying to load it again. All right, I'm gonna, oh. Okay. All right, I don't get it. I'm gonna stop share and send, let's see what's easiest in the chat. Send you the link.
Okay, let's try that and see if I can.
Oh goodness. Okay. Where's that? I thought this was just gonna be so easy.
I know. I don't know why it wouldn't play for you. Okay. All right, I have it. So now I'm going to do a share screen and try it, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh. Let me go back. Go back to this.
The reason I want to start with this video is that for me, it painted such a clear picture of that dividing line between like the church and the world.
Oh,
You know, where the church is essentially the father's position, and the world being the maybe I have that backwards in my understanding, but because sometimes they flip, right? When we think about the Adventist church, we think
Right.
they're off in the world, which they are, and the to a degree, the legislative body illustrates the world point pretty well. But go ahead, let's see if we can.
Okay, let's see if we can play it. I'll start it. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay.
Before I speak to the committee, I would like to address the transgender youth of the state of Arkansas as a real father does, a real father of a transgender child. No matter what happens here, no matter what happens here, you are loved. No matter what happens today, we will prevent this injustice. I come here today knowing full well that nothing I say will persuade this committee. You're hell-bent on passing this bill and running it through the rest of the legislature. You know the bill is unconstitutional and will not survive federal courts. The Supreme Court has already found that transgender Americans are protected from discrimination. Justice Neil Gorsuch, joined by 5 Supreme Court justices who still sit on the court, that's 6, that's a majority, wrote that it's impossible to discriminate against a person for being transgender without discriminating based on sex. And discrimination based on sex violates our U.S. Constitution. You know, this bill will further stagnate our state's economy. Diversity and inclusion are good for business. Discrimination imposes enormous productivity costs and exerts undue burdens. No economy in the history of the world has flourished under policies of hatred. Business will leave this state. New business will not come to this state. Remember North Carolina? As a business owner who pays tens of thousands of dollars in taxes to this state and who employs transgender workers, I am offended that you would squander our limited taxpayer resources paying lawyers to defend this infantile nonsense in federal court. Many of you claim to live according to the Bible and your Christian religion. So you have certainly read Romans 16:33, in which Paul asks, who knows the mind of the Lord? Those of you who would pass this bill into the full House claim to know the mind of God. There are more genders than you are aware of. There are more biological sex than you are aware of. You do not know the mind of God. I sit before you as a father.
Your time is
every
up.
constituent who votes or who will vote,
Your time
parent
is
or
up.
child, every person affected by this bill.
Your time is up. Would you move him from the table?
Health decisions for our families and our children. They're very important to me who I love initially.
You had 2 minutes like everyone else. Your time is up, sir. Thank you for your comments.
You are loved. You will prevail against unrelaxed as I can be. You are loved.
I don't think this is fair to the people that want to speak against the bill to limit their time when we have sat here for the last 45 minutes and listened to those who are in favor of the bill.
Representative Allen, I understand that. We have 16 people. If they speak 2 minutes apiece, that'll be about equal to what these other 4 are talking.
But those 16 people were on the agenda when it started. I think that if we're going to be fair with this, we should have limited it at the beginning and not at the end when we have people that want to speak against it.
No matter matter what happens here today, you are loved. You are loved. No matter what happens today, we will prevail over this injustice.
Wow.
Thanks, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
That was powerful for
It was very powerful.
Yes. Yeah.
of just. Oops, I'm hearing somebody talk. Is it Sue Ellen?
No, it might be me.
Okay. All right. I wanted to give the person a chance to repeat what they were saying. But the way that it was just so evident that those who speak against the position of the evangelical right will be considered criminals.
Mm. Yeah.
Those who don't have the same view of male and female gender roles, of family values, those who keep with these ideologies are going to justify their position of, well, this is what God is calling me to do. God is calling me to uphold these traditions. And anybody who exists outside of these traditions are going to be imprisoned, going to be deemed outlaws, criminals. And I think it's really interesting. One of the things that the position that Neil Gorsuch took, saying the discrimination of trans kids equals the discrimination on the basis of sex. And that was one of the fundamental pieces of legislature that kind of started Ruth Bader Ginsburg on her, I guess, on her course through her legal life, was discrimination based on sex. One of, I can't remember if it was the first court case that she had, that, or because I know it went to the Supreme Court, and she was awarded victory of this case where she was kind of upending the gender roles. There was the case that she was trying against the Supreme Court, or against all the court systems, and then she took it to the Supreme Court, was this case about a male nurse, essentially a man who was claiming on his taxes that he was staying at home as a caregiver for his mom. And the IRS was saying that that couldn't be what he was doing. He must have been sheltering, using that as a tax shelter, because only women have those positions. And this was the court case that propelled Ruth Bader Ginsburg forward in discrimination based on sex, where it was declared by the Supreme Court that discrimination based on sex was unconstitutional. So the position that Neil Gorsuch is making in this this case of discriminating against trans kids cannot happen, because it cannot be deemed constitutional, because it is a discrimination based on sex. And this is exactly what the traditional family values mean, is it allows for the discrimination of either sex, of either male or female, and assigning them these roles that they have to adhere to. And so I am breaking down kind of this division of these male, female gender roles as a binary system. Binary means that there's two variables within a system, male and female. And of course, the Christian right, evangelical right, is going to support that through scripture, that God made male and female only. And where we, so this is there, thus saith the Lord, and where we have parable application to show that male equals female. So now we open it up to all kinds of different combinations. And of course, this is backed by science. This is backed by tradition. So a non-binary system is where the male can equal the female. It doesn't mean that, I'm not talking about the sex organs, or that women have a uterus, therefore making it possible for them to carry children. That's a function of just the creation of there being two distinct sexes. However, now that we come to this point where we're able to look at what science, and therefore what the mind of God is actually indicating, that we are not male, female only. If male and female are equal, then we can have male-male combination, female-female, and then we can also see that a male who transitions to a female is able to couple with a female who transitioned to a male, for example, and so on. So the study that Parmender did on the can't remember now what it was called. I guess it was just study on homosexuality or LGBTQ. I can't remember now, but it was based on, now I'm blanking on the date that he gave that. I think it was his very last talk, actually. I want to say 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I think, the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Because he made a point about the chromosomes. There was maybe it wasn't the last one. There was a portion of videos that he was sharing with the Zoom group. I think it was Dean Hamer's video clips, where I'm going to put Dean Hamer, and there's a link in the Bible forum. I thought it was Dean Hamer, but the video that I saw spelled it Hamer. And he goes into the genetics of sexuality, where we see, the chromosomes XY or XX, the sex chromosomes, being the only things that determine a person's sex. This would be the traditional definition of sexuality. But what Dean Hamer's scientific thesis was that we have 46 chromosomes, and we have, so all chromosomes kind of look like X's, except for this male looking chromosome. It doesn't have a little tail, whereas the other chromosomes all have intersections with full strands. But these chromosomes in our genetic makeup, which is in the nucleus of our cells. So here's a cell. And the nucleus, the center portion, is what holds all of the genetic information. And these genes, there's not one single gene like these that depict a person's sexuality. His thesis was that sexuality is located in segments, varying segments, all along all of our genetic code. Does that make sense? So there's not one specific singular gene that codes for a person's sexuality. Rather, our sexuality is encoded on all of our genes, or a good portion of them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We can't isolate one gene, but we can isolate the sexual, what goes into making up a person's sexuality is on snippets of most, if not all, of the rest of our genetic makeup. So this makes it a lot more complex, right? That means that sexuality is not black and white. It's not oh, you've got this or you don't have this, right? You don't have this one or you do have this one. It's not, this is an incorrect model. This is a half wrong, half right model. But we also were working with what we could at the time. So now that further light has come, now that science has been able to splice inside of a cell and inside of the nucleus and inside of the genetic coding, now there's more information to be gathered, and now we can see that science is pointing to a non-binary state of a human. That while we might have, a quote-unquote male-looking appendage or female-looking structure, it doesn't mean that we are predisposed one way and one way only. Because having sexual components on all of these chromosomes also mean that our sexuality is a combination of how we were brought up, like the stresses that our parents were under while we were still being carried, while we were in utero, the different foods that could be eaten, the different toxins taken in, the environment in which the child is raised. If they're raised in an environment that locks them in to a gender role specific identity, they might have a set of sexual, not preferences, but sexual identifiers, but yet be forced into this male or female only world. And this is what we're seeing right now, is this unraveling, or at least from my perspective, it's an unraveling of this male only and female only world, because I can't remember now what it's Focus on the Family was there was also something that Parminder brought up, where these very traditional religious evangelical groups would have these pray the gay away, or something of the like, where they would have these like outreach programs where they would try and take say a person who identified themselves as male but were born female, genetic parts, genetic exterior looking like a female. And so this female who identifies as a male, she's trying to fit into this box that's male only. And yet these evangelical groups are saying, no, you can't be like this. You only have to be like you are, which is a circle. And you can only participate in this world according to the traditional roles that a circle would fill.
Mm-hmm.
You can only be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
You can only be a cook, a cleaner, or a teacher. If you were to be a business person or successful, independent, my spelling is wrong, independent, and well, that's good for now. Then you're breaking the traditional mold. You're breaking the traditional roles. So you can't have both. You can't be a working mom. You can't be a business owner and married. You have to sacrifice your success for the good of the husband. You have to prop up the husband, build him up and support him. And how is that done? But by taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, and having jobs like that exist within that world. And I know I'm a little bit younger than a lot within the movement. So when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I saw more examples of women fitting in to this male world, this male stereotype. And but then again, I looked, this was more of my mom's role, this was more of my dad's role. But yet Dad helped me with a strong science background, a love for knowledge, and for sports, to be tough, to be strong and independent. So my world was already kind of looking less and less homogenous, more and more heterogeneous, more and more combined male and female roles. So the patterns that I guess science is kind of forcing us to see now, more strongly now, is that this is more of the norm than these independent stereotypes, that we have more of a combined male and femaleness to our natures than we do of a female only or a male only. Not to say that those who identify that way, female only or male only, are wrong. It just means that now we are aware of how science, and therefore how God, because we know that first the natural, then the spiritual. So if we have the ability to look at what's natural, and that's what science gives us, then we can see how God has created males and females, or just humans. We've kind of divided them into males and females. And again, I think that was just the progressive nature of the unfolding of light. We had an understanding at one time, but now that understanding is being challenged. So we have to step back from that traditional understanding to grasp at what God, through science, is trying to tell us further about our nature. And this is also kind of another front in which the evangelicals are waging their war. They are cherry picking science to reinforce these gender roles. I think it might have been Dean Hamer who his thesis was being used by the evangelicals in support of this binary system, because they were latching on to what he was saying of there is no one gene that writes your sexual identity. So they took just that small snippet of his thesis and said, see, we told you, there's no genetic sexual identity. It's only learned, or you're only born male and female and you are deciding to be something different. And Dean Hamer says very, very bluntly, no, that they're taking that out of context. That what he was saying is that there's not a singular gene. Rather, there are multiple genes that have that coding imprinted on it. I was trying to think of an analogy. It would be like looking for one singular verse in the Bible that would say, that would tell us that the 2520 is a time prophecy, for example. There's not anything mentioned in the Bible specifically of 2520 in a literal sense. We have to break it down and look at what and how Scripture is telling us of the importance of the 2520. Same with our gender roles, our genetic makeup, because the Scripture does say that God made us male and female alike in his image and likeness. But yet, when Parminder was asking what sexual organs does Jesus have, does God have, well, we get a little tripped up in our thinking, because it's there isn't he had a I guess we identify him as a him because that's how it's written. But if we go so far to ascribe, what his male parts were to look like, well, does God have male parts? How do you guys answer?
No.
Anybody say otherwise?
I guess are you saying Jesus does not have his humanity anymore in heaven?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
That, and I'm trying to paraphrase what Parminder was saying too, is that, so to maybe even disassociate sexuality with humanity, because one of the things that he says, and I can't remember what book, I want to say Luke, but I'm not positive on that, where he says that we will be just like the angels in heaven. This is when he's being questioned by the Pharisees, and they're trying to trip him up and asking him about the
Marriage.
So the woman who marries the eldest of 7 brothers, and then the eldest dies, and then she keeps marrying the other brothers, and then the Pharisees ask, who is she married to in heaven? And Jesus says, you're not understanding scriptures. You're not understanding what the Lord is saying. We will be like the angels. So I'm sorry?
Okay, I got it. I see what you're going, where you're going. I just was a little confused for a second.
So it's not to say that he didn't have a sexual identity here on earth, and to say that without that sexual identity, he's no longer human. I don't think that that's a proper way of looking at that, as much as angels, there is no male, there is no female, right? It's equal sharing. It's
Right.
there's it's a so God is not, even though we designate the pronoun we use to refer to God as male, as father or he, in Jesus we ascribe as a he. It's one of those traditions that the evangelical, that the traditional, well, and even before it was evangelical, I think this was a very Catholic understanding that that God is only male, and marrying the church, which is female. Well, how can that be if the church is made of male and female, right? So there's an understanding our. Thought that was a really good sneeze. It was a dog barking. There's more to our sexual identity than what first meets the eye, right? This is, at the end of the day, this comes down to fast brain and slow brain. Slow brain takes longer to process the information. Fast brain says, oh, I see God being referred to as he, therefore he must be male. There must be gender roles to uphold, and we must discriminate anyone who does not fit those gender roles. We must discriminate against them because God tells us to. Right? That's the conclusion that this, I don't even, because what the world essentially is telling people that they must conform or they will be discriminated against.
So,
And
Alyssa,
go ahead, yeah.
that connects to the study of the 4 and the 6, because evangelicals are bound by those 4 commandments of defending God, honoring God, because of their incorrect way of reading the scriptures, the literalness that they're, reading the scriptures and stuck in the tradition of binary. There's no wiggle room. It's black and white, and they believe that they are totally right in what they are standing for, because it's God and country and the traditions, and that's a powerful, toxic, dangerous mindset.
Yeah. And so this is the seed that Satan has planted throughout thousands of years of how I'm trying to bring back to mind how Ellen White wrote it, where the traditions of the church is where Satan is going to use his power to persuade, right? It's through the doctrines of the church that are going to be perverted in his way. That's going to be the most effective, right? This was Ellen White discussing the transitional period between the 1260 to the Protestant movement after 1798. There's, so Satan is no longer waging war, so to speak, directly upon humanity. Now he's doing it a little bit more subtly through the traditions, through the doctrines, through dogmas that are going to pull God's faithful people away from the truth through these traditions, right? This is, I touched on that in the Two Crowns study in 2019 during the time that the shaking with FFA occurred, where, so that would have been, oh goodness, the corresponding section and great controversy of drawing a blank on, but you guys are all familiar with that statement anyway, that Satan transitioned from this physical punishment, so to speak, of people into more of a, well, I'll bring them in with words. I'll bring them in with the perversion of doctrine through their traditions, which is also what was going on with John the Baptist, with Judas, with a lot of the disciples. They were looking at the kingdom of heaven through the eyes of these traditions, rather than through the eyes of what God was trying to tell them. And so we have to have that same, we're held to a higher standard because we have Moses's history, Christ's history, Millerite's history for us to look at and say, okay, these are the things that weren't understood, or that were understood there, but now we are looking that there's a different story that's being portrayed. We're seeing that God's kingdom is not a binary kingdom. When we are in heaven, I know that, and this is also probably a little confusing for the mind too, because of Ellen White's visions that she has, that she tells us of being in heaven, where she talks about seeing her male friends there, and they're so excited to see each other, and they forgot, of their struggles to get there. They were just so happy to be there. And so there's a recollection of these earthly genders. So I think that kind of works in the back of our minds to try and cling to these gender roles on some level. And this is where we have to look at the parable methodology rather than the straight, thus saith the Lord, and see how much bigger God is trying to tell us his kingdom is, rather than, these squares and these circles, so to speak, that we all are a combination of these genders of, it's probably time for us to understand that God didn't make us this way. This is the way that we came to understand ourselves, through tradition, through literal interpretation. So now, opening ourselves up to what God is telling us, looking at the natural, making the spiritual application, and the natural being that male and female is equal, that we are not in a binary relationship with each other. Our relationship with each other is based on a myriad of factors, intelligence, hobbies, desires, or foods that we eat, books that we like to read. But all of these things are kind of external to what's going on internal. And where a traditional female is told, well, you only read Spirit of Prophecy, you only read Scripture, you only do what our traditions tell you to do, and you only teach the traditions to the kids. The men, they can kind of do whatever they want to. It's the woman's job to kind of keep them anchored in the home life. But men, they're often in the churches, they're able to keep their religious autonomy, whereas women are not. In order for women to be saved under this tradition, they have to be married. Unmarried women are a threat in this traditional binary system, because if there's a single female who is threatening these other women, then they can at any time choose the man, or the man can choose this female woman, and the married woman doesn't have any say. That's kind of a skewed paraphrasing, but it's to illustrate that there are these gender roles that we have, this understanding that men really can have extramarital relations. I mean, that's something that doesn't surprise anybody. Not that it's upheld, not that the movement justifies it, but in these traditional church units, the men can do whatever they want to. And this is where it gets, into these not so healthy mindsets of abuse, of sexual or physical abuse, men against women, men against boys. It's these trying to force people into these gender roles and say this is how it is, but yet give guys the leniency to exist outside of that binary system. But women are very locked into that binary system. But now, moving away from that, we can make the application, we can see the parable of, well, females don't have to be married to have worth. Females can have jobs. Females can be priests. Females can do the work that men can do. We can have the physical strength that men can have. Sure, we're still, biologically capable of bearing children, but we also are living in a time where that's not our mandate any longer. Women, our value as women is not tied to our gender role. It's not tied towards genetics. And I say genetics in the sense of this traditional understanding, because genetics in a non-binary understanding encompasses the whole spectrum, right? So there's a whole new way of looking at how we as people, as humans, humanity, what that means and how we exist alongside of each other. Where our value comes from our service to God rather than the service to tradition. And this is also where it gets sketchy with words, because these people within this binary system truly believe that they are serving God with their militarism of genetic roles, of male and female roles. So this is also where, in my mind, I want to ask the question to these people of, just ambiguously, of how can they change their way of thinking? How can I help them change their way of thinking to see that this isn't how God wants them to operate in life, let alone how they want, or how God wants us to treat our neighbor? This is not a true relationship with God or relationship with other people, whereas this is. But we can't get people here who are locked in to a mindset of binary only. And this is where I'm confronting myself with, maybe it's not my role. Maybe this is where God is doing a work on these people, on the world, to kind of like help crack open their shell, to where maybe when it's my time to interact with them, all I have to do is ask them a question that maybe can unlock a way of thinking for them that challenges their fast brain and allows their slow brain to process that question and see how something more than what they had held in tradition could exist. How it's not a black and white world, how it's more of a rainbow world. There's a spectrum of sexual identities, just as there's a spectrum of hair color. There's a spectrum of shapes and sizes of people. Our sexuality really is no different than that of our body shape and size, our hair color, our skin color. It's just a matter of acceptance. You know, a person who doesn't accept their skin color is going to want to bleach it, or tan a lot. They're going to want to change in some way that gives an impression of a different body, a different color. But really, at the end of the day, it's accepting of who you are, regardless of what you can do to change it. And this is where, kind of getting back into the video that we saw at the beginning, where it's going to be hard. There's going to be a world, a reality that is going to make it very, very hard for trans kids to have an identity, an internal identity that matches their external identity. Mm-hmm. And if they're not allowed legally to make those changes, then what if it's our job to, just like the Father said, just to love them, to show that they are accepted, that they are loved, that no matter what they're feeling at this time, rejected or out of their own, not comfortable in their own skin, that there's still life beyond that, the way that the world structures its gender roles is not something to try and conform to, but rather something that needs to be, challenged in a way that allows for a person's individuality to be expressed, and where at the very least, what we can do is to be a support system, to be so different from those of this binary traditionalist mentality, to have the proper message of, and just like the Father said, it wasn't the proper scripture verse that he quoted, but to know the mind of God is to properly identify through the natural, to see the spiritual application of what truly living a human existence means. And it has nothing to do with conforming to gender roles. It has everything to do with loving God, and in doing so, mandating to us that we must love our neighbor. And our neighbor is going to look like this. Our neighbor is not going to be, they might think that they're traditional male and female, but really they're a spectrum of what that appears to be, what that looks like, what the daily roles for people appear to be. So truly understanding what God is trying to tell us allows for our slow brain to have that chance to reason rather than to react quickly or by reflex. And so by looking at that, by seeing, okay, we're being called to move out of a fast brain reflex response into a slow brain, breaking things down, reasoning through things, having sound logic, applying properly the parable of natural and spiritual, not taking things literally, slowing things down for our own understanding so that we then can see the world. If we look at this being the church, and by church, I mean 144,000 plus all the others that are in the kingdom of heaven. And the world being those held in captivity to tradition, to help the people within the world slow down their reflex brain, stop using dog whistle terminology, to understand that their quick reflex responses isn't getting the full picture. If it were getting the full picture, then there wouldn't be a debate, right? Nobody is debating what color white is. This is not up for debate of what color this is. We've already settled on that. We've already settled that this is black. Nobody is arguing that point because we've already come to the agreement that colors mean a certain thing. So now we have to come to an agreement of what gender is, what that means, that it's not a binary system. It's not black or white, but rather a whole rainbow of spectral combinations, that male and female is equal to one another and therefore able to make whatever combinations, I guess, that God made them to have, to partner with. And before we can help others, we first have to help ourselves get out of that fast, quick reflex mentality into the slow brain, thoughtful, logical, seeing humanity as, here's a cute way of looking at it, humanity as hue, as having many different colors, right? A hue is like a rainbow, in the sense of there being many colors. That's a hue. Rather than male, female, black and white. So I think I'm a little early, but any questions on this? Anybody have an understanding that's different, or that they'd like to add, or a question of how do I get from this binary to non-binary. I'm opening up the floor.
I have some comments.
Go right ahead.
Well, it really ties in with your last statement about the hue being many colors. And as you were describing the non-binary as this range of sexuality, and I thought, wow, the rainbow flag is a perfect symbol of what this is. And I remember just thinking it was disgusting. Now I think it's awesome. And then when you were talking about how science is splicing the cell and then splicing the nucleus and then splicing the DNA and genetic, and I was like, I just pictured this as, here is science as prophets for God, and they are digging for hidden treasure. And they are unearthing this for the Nethinims, for the Levites. So they're working for us, basically, on our behalf, because we don't have that scientific mind. But anyway, so they're the prophets that are out there getting this out there for people. The Arkansas testimony, that man to me was like, here's a possible Nethinim. He's giving witness also regarding the transgenders. And what was the other thing I wanted to say? Are you still there?
I am. I'm looking at who raised their hand. Oh, sorry. I'm here.
Okay. And then, the male female traits are in all of us. And I grew up riding, I had a skateboard. I played baseball in the street with the rest of the neighborhood kids, climbed trees, did track and field. I was interested in cars. I didn't really have a lot of, I didn't dream about a family and a white picket fence and a house, but I still had kids. I worked in a man's world because my husband and I had a construction company, but then I went and worked, after we divorced, I worked in a gift shop it was a rather large, popular, trendy gift shop for jewelry and gifts and high-end things, of which by that time the Lord had severed me from wanting any of this stuff. So it was really kind of cool because I'm there working there, but I'm not interested in any of it except for I studied what it took to create a diamond or to create a ruby or to create a sapphire, and saw the object lessons of the heat and the pressure and the being underground, and you know what I mean? So all those things turned into object lessons, and I didn't really want to go and buy one for my hand. But anyway, I appreciate your presentation. It was really good. Good review of what Parminder talked about. And you added a lot more, some extra explanation too. And so thank you so much.
Amen. Yeah.
Thank you. Grateful to be used in such a way. But Kathy Brown, I saw that your hand was raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there are videos. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
There's videos on YouTube that I found helpful, and I don't even know how I wasn't searching for them, and I usually don't go to this, the side video suggestion things, but whatever I was watching, there was I couldn't tell you, you just would have to, I don't know, but a really good presentation by a person, a human, who looked more female than male, though she dressed, and she's biologically, body structure and organs, a female, but yet chose to dress as a male, but she didn't want to, she's not transgender. She basically was non-binary is how she identified herself. And I'm just saying there are videos out there that are really good to understand the mind of these human beings, you know, and also to empathize with them and what they have to go through, because she uses a woman's bathroom. But because of the way she's dressed, they freak out thinking some guy's in the bathroom, you know, and, you know, those kind of things. But anyways, I just wanted to say, you know, there's plenty of trans, you know, videos out there, but this was unique, and I wish I had more information to tell you what it was even called. It was, I think it was a TEDx. It wasn't a straight TED Talk, but a TEDx, and I'm not sure, you know, who sponsored it. But anyways, it's stuff out there, and it's really good because it really is helpful to put all the things that you have said in right in front of you. Practical, here I am, this person that you just spoke about. And it gives you a, like I said, you can empathize better than looking on a board and reading words. And I'm not saying nothing wrong with that, but what you have said is personified out there on YouTube. And it was really helpful, you know, for people who are struggling with this whole concept and that kind of thing. Because this person was no less a human being than me, and they were comfortable in who they were, but yet the struggles they had to face, it's just unbelievable, and it's just unfair, you know. And so that's all. I just wanted to share that. And yes, I appreciate the presentation, and I had seen the Arkansas video. Yeah, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty upsetting that the governor approves the bill and yet the Congress overrides, and it's sickening. That's all. You know.
Well, thank you for sharing. So the way that might be an easy way, if people are, of course, you can type in anything into YouTube and get, you know, thousands of hits, but Dean Hamer is probably a really good place to start. And then from there, following several, but I know what you mean by YouTube just having things that are coincidentally very applicable to our present state of understanding truth, and how the you know, different videos can show up just at the exact time that we need them. And Kathy Brown, I liked what you said about recognizing that these non-binary people, and actually I say these, but really we are all non-binary, right? There's not a, like, personally, I identify as a non-binary because I no longer see myself fitting these gender roles.
Right. Yeah.
And especially the way that Parminder broke down the, you know, just females being priests, well, automatically that puts us in a non-binary category.
Sister Alyssa?
You know, yes, is that Jim?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to just say one thing. You know, we've been talking about male and female roles, and male, it's usually talked about as a female in a male's role, or a female in a male's world. But when I'm probably 26, 27, or maybe, no, I was going to say it was about 30. And I had 2 children, and my first wife had left. And so I had these 2 children. They'd actually been taken away. And then I got them back, and I was sobering up, and it was just I had these two children, and I had to get on, I tried to work, and it was just too hard to work and take care of those kids,
Right. Yeah.
especially as a man, not having any training or anything into being a mom,
Sure.
you know, mom. So
Yeah.
I did that for a couple of years till I met Sue Ellen, and then we got together, and then I was a dad to her kids, and she was a mom to my kids. So,
Yeah.
but I could relate to women being single moms,
Mhm.
you know, in that role. So
Yeah.
it was a male in a female's role, and I just want to say that that happens too.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because we hear more, I think, of single female moms. What is that called? Whatever you were trying to say, of single moms. But that oftentimes neglects all the single dads. And I, you were saying, well, you didn't have any training. I can guarantee you that many females don't have training either.
Nope.
Even, we all have moms, we all have dads, to what capacity in our lives, and so oftentimes we just mirror the things that we've seen in our lives, the examples that our parents provided us, and then we try and do better, or at least the same as what we were shown. And so I guess I'm calling that point out that you said, Jim, simply because I think that's another kind of trap within this gender role model of, well, it comes naturally to women to be female or to be mothers. They're female, so of course they know. I specifically chose not to have kids because I knew that I would not be a good one. I knew that I didn't meet a compatible partner either to have a family with, and so it was a conscious choice. But to meet, I have many male friends that are single dads, and they are so phenomenal with their kids. They're, if not more so than what their ex-wife counterpart is to the kids. And so I think that's another kind of, gender role that we've got to kind of replace, get out of our thinking that that guys aren't good at that, because I don't think that's true at all.
Oh, no, I agree.
Oh, I wanted to say something too.
Please.
Well, along what Jim was saying, yeah, I took on the role of the mother, for all the kids, and he was the dad because he worked longer hours, and I was a student at that time. And but I know, just like you were saying, mirroring other things. I really didn't know how to do it. I was just winging it based on things, my bringing up, which, I know that it could have been better, could have been a lot better. And Jim really is a lot, more tender than I am in the beginning. You know what I mean? He's just gentle soul. And I don't think I'm as gentle as he is. But also I have this other little story. After we've been talking about all these gender things, and I remembered when I was in elementary school, I was kind of a tomboy and running all over the place and climbing trees and chasing boys and playing with boys, running around playing ball. But we did a lot of tag, and just chasing around. And then on my third grade report card, my teacher wrote down that I was boisterous. And then my mother had to explain what that was. So I spent a lot, I think it really changed how I perceived myself and tried to be more feminine.
Oh,
And
oh
I'm
man.
not sure I was able to accomplish that very much, but it did kind of make me feel bad about myself.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. And that's really the point that, if anything, that I want to stress over and over is for us to create a safe haven for these for fellow non-binary people who don't fit into this binary world of male roles, female roles, where they're told to feel bad about themselves if they see
Right.
themselves differently.
Mhm.
This is where I think it was my daily Ellen White quote that was sent that talked about, I'll share it in the group because I can't recall the exactness of it, but it had to do with love, that love is the great attractor, that when we embody the love that Christ imparted on us, when we become that same loving soul, that loving human to another, that's going to draw others in. It's rather than the kind of the harsh critique that these traditional family values instill. It's a very harsh world, this binary world of you have to fit, males have to fit the square peg, females have to fit this round peg, and neither can fit into each other's. The square doesn't fit into the circle doesn't fit into the square, so to speak. It's a very harsh world that I think probably most of us, if not all of us, have probably come out of. Being one of the young, well, besides the Coleman girls, well, I would even say that the Coleman girls have known this world, because it's still a part of the world, because the church traditions, the literal interpretation has emphasized and reinforced this notion of male, female only. Anything outside of that is bad and to be shunned, to be told, we can love them, but we've got to hate, love the sinner or hate the sin, or right? Love the sinner or hate the sin. But yet a person hearing that still thinks, so you might accept me, but if you think that my sexual identity is a sin, then you really aren't accepting me.
Exactly. Yep.
So this is where this is another part of the mountain that we're being cut out of, is this binary world. Because we as humans are non-binary. We are actually scientifically a combination of, of gender identity, of physical gender traits, of sexual inclinations, of, I'm trying to think back of the ginger man that was shared I thought that was really interesting, that kind of showed the spectrum of sexuality. There were 4 different components. There was like the external presentation of sexuality being your sex organs, your sexual inclinations, those who you have desires for partnering with. And there are 2 other characteristics, but was somebody adding something?
Identity, orientation, sex, and expression.
Thank you, Penny. All right, say that one more time so I can write it down.
identity,
Okay.
orientation,
Okay.
sex, and expression.
Okay. So this is what that gingerbread man showed. These are the 4 components. And I think that was pretty well categorized. The way in which we can, see ourselves as binary, male or female, or existing outside of, right? Because binary is, I don't know if you can, binary is one thing here, another thing here, and what's in the middle doesn't count. You're this or you're this. Binary says you can exist non-binary says you can exist in between these 2 signposts, these 2 gender norms. So we'll call this the female and the male gender norms. Non-binary covers this middle ground. So you can be asexual, having no sexual inclination whatsoever. Where does that fit into the binary model? You can't. I mean, not without breaking the rules, right? So I guess the bottom line of this is to show how much deeper, how much more complete our love for our neighbor must be in order for us to be worshiping God properly.
Sister Alyssa?
Yes, Bob.
It's interesting when you look at the model that's being presented to the world of white evangelicals and how they hold only to white, and just using that example only, we're not even getting into the gender issue. Either you're white or you're non-white.
Yeah.
That puts it into binary, and if you're white, you're good, and if you're not white, but then you look at the whole spectrum. You've got people that are their skin is as dark as midnight, and you've got everything in between, between.
Yeah.
And so you talk about the different hues, and that there's a variety there. Science, we categorize all the different types of animals into certain categories, and we look at different insects certain ways, and we define a butterfly to be a butterfly because of certain things, but there's such a huge variety there as well. So God's trying to show us all this stuff that way. And I guess I liked your comments also tying back in with the fast brain and the slow brain, and just looking at the whole thing, because God's trying to reveal himself. And I think that when you brought up the scripture verse where they're questioning, the woman who married all the brothers, whose husband is she going to be? And when he says they're going to be like the angels, that statement obviously didn't compute with the Pharisees whatsoever.
Right.
They couldn't even get it. And yet the closer we get to as Sister Kathy McGraw was saying, that we still don't understand equality the way we should. And when we do, the closer we get to it, the easier it is for us to see all this stuff clearly, and to realize that there is a whole spectrum there, and I just think it's beautiful. And even where I think where God was trying to help me the other on Wednesday, when I happened to mention the 10 commandments, if you look at it with the fast brain, you do see the 4 and the 6, but if you look at it below the surface, you look at everything and it's just like, okay, that they're all equal, and it
Right.
just it just blends. So I think that
And
the whole
telling a
thing is
deeper
great.
story.
Yeah.
Good.
And the last comment I just want to make, I know that we were talking about the state of Arkansas and the law that they passed, but just to clarify, the governor himself actually vetoed. Penny's the one who brought
Yeah.
that out to me. He actually vetoed it. He was not for it. Okay,
Right. But
although
the
he knew it was
legislature
going to be
overturned.
overruled, but he himself did not vote for it.
I think he said it was an
Right.
overreach.
Yeah, he said it was an overreach of what they were trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathy, Kathy Brand, you shared one of the videos that you were talking about. I saw that you shared a video.
Yeah, I
just
put it in the
wanted to
chat.
give. Oh, David.
Can you
Okay,
hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I put it in there for her. She sent it to me. She's on her phone. And then I
Oh,
took
great.
it off my phone
Okay.
and put it on this thing. So there it is.
Okay. Would you mind sharing it in the
would
Lambert Church?
Okay.
Because once this shuts down, once the meeting shuts down, all the links are lost, and I would like for us to have a reference point.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do that. So I wanted to say one thing, if I could.
Please. That
was the little comment you made, just a passing thing, but the way you described the non-binary, I guess, was relating it to hair color, eye color, skin tone, and how there's such a blend of all those things. And why can't it be that can be in our sexuality also? And it just struck me. I never really thought of it that way, and it was a blessing. So thank you.
Praise the Lord. Thank you. There was something. So I guess my last question that won't be answered here, just for us to chew on, to process. If we as humans do not actually fit this binary male female, another way of looking at these two distinctions, so this binary traditional way of looking at gender, we could say that this is ideological, right? Tying in another way of what Parmender was teaching, ideology versus humanism, right? Do you remember those studies? If not, you can refresh your memory. But having an ideology over your way of thinking that falls in line with these traditions is not actually true. It's just an ideology. It's just something that people have for generations said, well, this is how God wants us to be. But yet when we really take a broad look with our slow brain and see what God is actually trying to lay out for us, it's very easy to see that this is the humanistic presentation that God is calling us to understand, to get rid of our false ideology and to understand, to embrace humanism, to embrace our neighbors as equal to ourselves and therefore equal in deserving of love, because that's what God tells us to do, is to embrace, to love our neighbor. And our neighbor is humanity. So the question that I'm going to leave us with is, if we live outside of this male-female, black and white gender role system, then is that, well, to me, that calls into question our use of calling each other brother and sister. I'm not going to venture to answer that. I'm just throwing that out as something for us to work through in our own understanding.
Yeah.
So I'll close in prayer, but I'm going to ask else to pray. Sister Penny, if you're able.
Sister Penny had to leave, just a minute and a half ago, so she's not here. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
And I'll just say Penny. She left the room.
and that's I'm not saying I don't say what I said to like impose anything, a way of thinking onto you guys. This is a question that I have.
I had the same question
myself.
even after I said it, and Penny, before she left the room, she goes, I just don't get why we have to say brother this and sister that all the time. And I said, well, I don't always say it. And then the thought hit me before you even decided to put the question out at the end, why are we even doing it? Because we're actually kind of in my mind, we're soliciting the binary system.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah.
But she's out of the room, so I'm sorry she won't be able to do it, but I'll
That's okay. Well, I want to have more of the female presence. I see Soraya on, but I don't know if she feels comfortable to do our closing prayer. Soraya, if you're able to unmute and just tell me yes or no, that's totally fine. She's even paying attention at the moment. Then how about Kathy Brown, if she's able? Okay. Pam, I know you're able.
I'm here. I can
she
do
said-
it.
Oh, Kathy Brown. Okay, perfect.
I'm sorry, because I had two devices on and I had to it's difficult when you're on the phone and everything's different, but I can pray.
Okay, thank you.
Let's pray. Father in heaven. Should we even say Father in heaven? Our God. We are come before you on the Sabbath day, thankful, Lord, for the light that you are shining upon your word. And it's just amazing and awesome. And I just thank you for our presentation today by Alyssa. And I pray that she'll continue to bless each and every one of us as we study these things out, and that you help us to wrap our minds around this, Lord, and to see each other as humans, humanity. That is the race we belong to. We belong to the race of humanity. As other people have said, there's no other race. And it's in the Bible. We're humans. And so I just pray for a blessing on the remainder of our Sabbath day, and the other presentations that we have to look forward to today, Lord, that you'll continue to shine the light on us and give us that double blessing on the Sabbath. And I just pray this all in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. All righty. Thank you so much, Alyssa. That was
I'll take a picture of the board and I'll send it. I'm sorry for taking so long.
No, that's all right. We'll move on. But yeah, put it on the in the chat. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in 15.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it was excellent, Alyssa.
Oh, thank you, Carol. I appreciate your support.